Welcome to Study with the Best, the magazine show that's all about CUNY. I'm Tina Beth Pina. On today's show, we're at Brooklyn College and we're talking about arts across the CUNY spectrum. From Pulitzer Prize winner Tyehimba Jess to experimental musician David Grubbs, we have those stories and so much more. First up, in his Pulitzer Prize winning work, College of Staten Island professor Tyehimba Jess reveals how African Americans identify, or choose not to, through the prism of historical African American artists.
Olio is a book about the lives of 19th century African American creatives who were the very first folks after emancipation to experience the freedom of pursuing their art forms. Cicely Jones, I should say, was the very first African American to sing at Carnegie Hall in 1892, really before it was even called Carnegie Hall. So she says, "What kind of mask might I have on?" she said, "Because let me tell you, most don't even know they're wearing a mask. You got to know which masks, how many masks you're wearing before you can put it down and see your true self. Those that do, they know just how to slide in and out of it, how to make the world spin inside it and out of it, how to spread their song all over that mask and make it one with the world, no matter how thick or thin the truth in that song might be." And I think what that is about about self-awareness and awareness of the kind of masks that one might have to put on, that black folks will have to put on in order to navigate the terrain just of everyday life, and also the ability to understand where the mask ends and where your true self begins. And that is that you know, that you're talking about a lot of subconscious self-hate, a lot of learned and a lot of prejudice against one's own self and one's own people that one has to navigate because of the way that we are taught, the way white supremacy is taught and enforced in every aspect of our society.
How do you play that terrain yourself as an artist? You won the Pulitzer Prize.
Right.
So how do you navigate that terrain?
I navigate it by writing about it. And this is really the way, this is part of my compass in writing, is writing about it and talking about it and examining the history of other folks that have navigated that very terrain. You know what I'm saying? I think that when I'm talking about Cicely Jones and when I'm talking about Blind Tom and Scott Joplin, I'm really still talking about what's happening still today. You will never see an actual minstrel play again, but you'll see shades and aspects of the minstrel show, you know, in multiple genres and in multiple forms. And it's about navigating that tightrope every day, and understanding understanding how to foil it, and as someone says in the book, make the joke all around you and not you. This is a poem about Blind Boone, in the voice of Blind Boone, who was at one point auditioned for a job to cut a piano roll. So this is Blind Boone's Pianola Blues. They said I wasn't smooth enough to beat their sharp machine, that my style was obsolete, that old rags had lost their gleam and lunge, that all I had left was a sucker punch that couldn't touch the invisible piano man with his wind-up, gutless guts of paper rolls. And so I went and told them that before the night was through, I'd prove what the son of an ex-slave could do. I dared them to put on their most twisted tune, to play it double time while I listened from another room past the traffic sounds of the avenue below, to play it only once, then to let me show note for note how that scroll made its roll through Chopin or Bach or Beethoven's best. And if I failed to match my fingers and ears with the spinning gears of their invisible pneumatic piano scholar, I'd pay them the price of $1,000. And what was in it for Boone, you might ask? Might be the same thing that drives men through mountains at heart attack pace. Might be just to prove some task ain't meant to be neatly played out on paper and into air, but rather should tear out from lung, heart, and brain with a flare of flicked wrists and sly smile above the 88s. And of course, that ever-human weight of pride that swallows us when a thing's done just right. But they were eager to prove me wrong. They chose their fastest machine with their trickiest song and stuck it in a room far down the hall from me. They didn't know how sharp I can see with these ears of mine. I caught every note, even though they played it in triple time. And when I played it back to them, even faster, I could feel the violent stares, heard one mutter, "Lucky black bastard." And that was my cue to rise, to take a bow in the smoldering silence and say, not luck, my friend, but the science of touch and sweat and stubborn old toil. I bet these 10 fingers against any coil of wire and parchment and pump. And I left them there to ponder the wonders of blindness as I walked out the door into the heat of the sun.
Where can life take you after retiring from a rewarding career teaching English literature at CUNY? You're about to find out.
Henry James, an American painting. Well, I'm going to claim that this I've been a docent here for 6 years. They actually let me do the things that I like to do best in the world, which is to study, to shape a story, and then to share it. I mean, when I retired from being a full-time professor, they gave me a Tiffany crystal apple, and they said, what would you like it to say? And people put their dates and this and that. Without even thinking, I immediately paraphrased a phrase from the Canterbury Tales, and gladly would she learn and gladly teach. He is the consummate man of letters. I throw myself into a topic. Sometimes I know a lot about it to begin with. Sometimes I know zero. And I immerse myself in whatever the exhibition is. And then I try to shape it into an interesting narrative, and then I get to perform. I also have a little bit of a performing streak. Gets pneumonia, and in 4 days, she's dead. The shock of it. So I love what I do. Hey, are you going to join me on this Henry James tour? Okay, come a little closer. I want to welcome you to the Morgan Library. I'm almost always early at the gathering spot because I like to kind of see who's there, and I like to chat with the people, see where they come from, if they have a particular interest. And by the minute I talk with them, I'm relaxed and happy, because that's maybe the most fun of all. I pick and choose from the items in the exhibitions, the ones that I think are the most interesting, the most beautiful, the most enigmatic, and we stop at different stations, and I give them background, and hopefully make sense out of the exhibition in a way that they wouldn't get just looking and reading the wall panels, because otherwise what do they need me for? Most of my career, I was a professor of English at New York City College of Technology. It was harder getting this volunteer job than any paid job I ever had. They make you jump through hoops.
Docents have to go through a kind of long vetting process in order to be taken on by the Morgan, and they are interviewed extensively. They have to try out to be a docent, and then if it looks like they have the potential to be a good guide, They're brought into the program, trained extensively over a period of months, and then there's a final exam, and if they pass that, then they can be a Morgan docent.
What I'm so impressed with is how much work you do and how much work we do. This, all of this, pages and pages of material, dense material of variety, is just for one show that's gonna leave. One of my friends who sees how much work I put in, she says, don't you think you need to get paid? You're putting in 1 million hours. I said, it doesn't even cross my radar screen. I'm getting paid. I'm just not getting paid in money. So I'd like to end by Henry James's last words about art. He says, documentary truth is limited. It needs to be complemented by imaginary truth, to guess the unseen from the seen. This is what these artists, painters and writers are giving us. They are giving us artistic truth, truer and more lasting than facts. Thank you very much for joining me.
I thought it was fantastic. It gave such an insight into Henry James and the connections he had.
Her own enthusiasm and love both of the paintings and of the literature really came through.
I know so much more now than I did before, and I am definitely going to read every book that she mentioned.
They're going to drag me out of here when I'm on crutches, and I like to do it as long as I have energy.
A professor from right here in Brooklyn College who's been playing in underground rock bands for 30 years tells us how he keeps current.
I started playing in punk bands when I was 14, and that's what authorized me to write music and start writing songs. When people ask me to describe music that I do now in the year 2017, and I'm really at a loss for where to begin with the description, I usually begin at the beginning and say something that's not very helpful to people, like I grew up playing in hardcore punk bands. Punk and post-punk was a kind of authorizing moment for me. It was a kind of grassroots youth cultural movement that was much larger than a musical style. Punk was that same thing for me. I moved to Chicago to go to graduate school and was involved in 2 groups for whom the concept of a rock band kind of dissolved. One was the Red Crayola, which at that point had been around for almost 30 years, and maybe 100 people had flowed through the Red Crayola, and Mayo Thompson was the founder, always described it as a non-membership organization. And the other group that I was in at the time was called Gastro del Sol, which was primarily the duo of Jim O'Rourke and myself and whomever we played with. Gastro del Sol seemed much more about the fact that in Chicago there were all kinds of willing participants who came from not only, the punk scene, but from improvised music, from jazz, from contemporary classical music, electronic music. A lot of what I've done since the late 1990s has been this string of solo records, with different collaborators each time. It's very similar to my experience of being in groups like Gastro del Sol and the Red Crayola, where there was no fixed membership, and you could kind of reinvent your practice from project to project. My newest solo record is called Creep Mission. The music on it, it's really oriented around the electric guitar. That's at the core of these, I guess I would call them wordless songs. I mean, they really feel like songs to me. I'm still very much oriented around making albums and working in the recording studio. I think that I was really of this first generation where people were making records at home, either with cassette 4-tracks or studios in their apartments. That's a rhythm of working I like. It's a kind of a host of aesthetic questions and options that I care very deeply about and, really gravitate towards and enjoy diving in. I would say among musical and artistic peers of mine, the album, it hasn't disappeared, right? It hasn't dematerialized. It's still a way of checking in after a year or 18 months. It's a status report. It's still a relevant form. As far as having made records for a number of years and now being a teacher, I would say that what is relevant to students, and both undergraduates and graduate students, is that I continue to tour and make records and collaborate with other people, 2 hours ago, I was at a record store in Brooklyn. You know, I buy records, I buy CDs, I buy new releases, I buy used records, I stream music, I listen to music via YouTube, I go to see live concerts. You know, I take it by hook or by crook. You know, like the attraction is to the music, it's not to the medium. About half the courses that I teach are in the Performance Interactive Media Arts program. All of the work is done collaboratively by students. All the work is realized as performances incorporating technology. The backgrounds or the disciplines that the students come into the program with tend to be theater, more experimental theater, music composition, but usually electronic music or computer music, computer programming or media arts. Increasingly, we have people coming in with a background in dance and choreography. I would say that the typical PIMA student, in as much as there is one, is someone who's been out of school for 5 or 10 years or more and has established their theater company or their dance company or has some ongoing professional practice as a composer or a sound designer and is interested in working with people with different disciplinary backgrounds. The second semester PIMA seminar is a course in community-based art practices. People identify some kind of community-based group outside of the school that they want to collaborate with to create a live performance. So that there was one group called El Barrio is Movement. It was a performance that at the end of the semester was realized in a dance school, a dance studio in East Harlem. And they were interested in working with folks in that neighborhood and sort of looking for cultural common denominators in the neighborhood. They did an all-day event essentially where they introduced a number of these communities that, you know, that had organized themselves around dance. It's my experience of teaching that the most effective teaching in arts education, say, doesn't come from telling students what's most important or like, you know, this is the greatest work of the last 50 years or something like that, but really to, as best as possible, convey what your own attraction is or your own commitment is to a particular work or a particular idea.
Did you know that music can rebuild lost functions like walking or even talking? We visited Lehman College's Concetta Tomino at the Institute for Music and Neurologic Function to find out more.
The Institute was founded in response to both mine and Dr. Oliver Sacks, the neurologist and author. For many years we had worked with people with neurologic diseases, and we knew that there was something about music specifically that could stimulate areas of the brain that were dormant or damaged, but through music and through the organization of sound could actually reorganize them in a way that brought functionality back to these individuals. So the board of directors of the healthcare institution where we were working realized that there was potential in what we were doing. And so together with me and Dr. Oliver Sacks helped us found the Institute in 1995, really with the purpose of being the bridge between basic neuroscience, which back in 1980 was really new, and clinical music therapy. And songs like This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Many years ago, there was a speech therapist who developed something called melodic intonation therapy. Very, very purposeful use of tapping and two-tone of sound. Hello, how are you? And do you have any plans this week?
I have planned to go to DC.
We saw clinically that if we could use the techniques consistently every day after somebody had a stroke, they did recover.
When I came, I wasn't able to talk that much, but I have improved a lot. I have improved a lot.
Over the years, I've had the opportunity to study how music, specifically music of an autobiographical nature, can help reach people toward the end stages of Alzheimer's disease. Mainly songs that are have some emotional connection to them individually.
Keep
the love light glowing in your eyes, so blue.
For Alzheimer's disease, although there's no recovery, there's the potential of maintaining function for a longer, or extending function for a longer period of time. Rhythmic cueing can help facilitate initiation of movement and also coordination of movement in people with Parkinson's disease. When the auditory system has these impulses from sound, it actually drives and stimulates and arouses key areas of premotor function that allows for that initiation of function as well as coordination. We have evidence now that the brain does change, that there is in fact neuroplasticity. People talk about it all the time, the brain's potential for change and reorganization. But we know now that it can actually happen after rigorous use of musical type cues and music therapy. So the scope of music therapy is tremendous. Music therapy allows for pain management, it allows for emotional transition, and allows for families to connect with each other as the loved one is passing on. So more and more we're seeing the demand, and especially I should say in mental health. We do a program for veterans with PTSD, using music as a way for them to express themselves, to actually get in touch with feelings that they've blocked. I've been involved with the music department at Lehman College for over 35 years. I'm a trumpet player. I play with the wind ensemble there. And for the past 4 years, I've been teaching a course in music in the brain, as well as an intro to music therapy. And especially now that the field is growing so much, there's potential for employment, which is always a key component to why a curriculum is developed. I believe that music is really an extension of ourselves and actually grew out of actually preceded spoken language. We are a musical species in the sense that everything about our body is rhythmic and vibrational and harmonic, and the universe is a musical phenomena in the sense that it is made of vibrational units. And so I think this interaction of sound and vibration is part of how we communicate and how we relate to the world around us.
From a small radio station at Queens College to rock and roll legends and Sirius XM radio, Study with the Best is on the air.
It's Dennis Elsas at member-supported 90.7. We're WFUV and WFUV.org with the music of Bruce Springsteen.
For over 45 years, Dennis Elsas has been spinning records and interviewing rock royalty in New York, becoming a fixture in NYC rock himself along the way. Today he's still at it, as we visit him where he DJs at New York City's last great progressive rock radio station, 90.7 WFUV.
My responsibility and my pleasure at WFUV is to make sure that I know about the new artists that we're playing. Because at this radio station, we play a mix. We like to say music discovery starts here. So the music discovery is not just for the listener, it's also for the men and women playing the music. I loved rock and roll, and I love the radio. And the two together. You know, I am one of those people that grew up listening to the AM radio, listening to all those disc jockeys at the time. I didn't know it at the time, but they were helping me to form a style.
And that style has served him well. Dennis first carved a name for himself as the evening DJ and music director at New York's leading rock station from the 70s through the 90s, WNEW. In that capacity, he conducted one of the most famous interviews in rock history, when John Lennon decided to pop in, and ended up staying for 2 hours.
Surprise, surprise, it's Dr. Winston O'Boogie at your service. I am Dennis's surprise, actually.
And he didn't come out of a cake or anything like that. John Lennon is with us.
The Lennon interview is classic because, you know, in 1964, I'm a kid watching them on the Ed Sullivan Show. In 1974, I'm welcoming him to the studios of WNEW-FM to literally introduce a brand new album. And he puts me completely at ease. And once I realize that he's comfortable, I can talk to him not only about the new album, he's there to promote Walls and Bridges, but I can indulge myself and my audience in all these great Beatles stories. And there's some great Beatles stories told for the first time on that afternoon in that interview. So the interview has been used in the recent Ron Howard documentary and a whole bunch of other documentaries and books.
Over his career, Dennis has interviewed the likes of Elton John, Pete Townsend, Greg Allman, Darlene Love, Patti Smith, Paul Simon. The list goes on. But it all started out as a kid growing up in the turbulence of the 1960s at Queens College.
Everything was in turmoil, everything was changing, and so was the radio scene. The AM that I had grown up listening to was starting to transition to FM. We go from a much more simple era in rock and roll, pre-Beatles, to a much more complex one, and FM radio is the perfect place to be as those changes are happening. I was in love with the music, I was in love with the radio, and once the British invasion happened, and once I was starting to get involved with college radio, there was no turning back.
Queens College turned out to be the perfect opportunity.
So there was a little announcement in the Phoenix newspaper, that's the Queens College newspaper, that says, interested in starting a radio station, meet in room such and such at 1 o'clock. So I was one of those people. We got a little broom closet on the side of the stage in the student center. You know, it was basically, okay, you can have this room. You know, and this one brought in a turntable, and this guy knew how to wire, and this guy knew this, and this woman knew that, and this and this and this and that. And then I think slowly but surely everyone sort of fell into their particular strength. And even though I had never been an announcer, even though I had never been a disc jockey, I obviously had been listening well enough so that I knew what I was doing. I knew the music, and it became a love and a passion that I combined with my education.
Nowadays, along with his WFUV duties, Dennis can be heard nationally on SiriusXM's Classic Vinyl channel and on the Beatles channel hosting the Fab Forum call-in show. And he also presents his own multimedia stage show around the tri-state area, showcasing decades of his archived stories and interviews. It's called Rock and Roll Never Forgets.
You know, the music that you love the most is probably the music that you grew up listening to. It's probably the first song where you fell in love, or the first song where you experimented, or the first song where life started to change for you. So it's probably your early teen years through your early 20s. Those are markers for you. You're always going to carry that stuff around. Those songs are always going to have a special relevance whenever and however you hear them, right? But if your ears are open, if your mind is open, then you can appreciate new sounds and new music as it comes along.
New sounds and new music that this Queens College grad will be spinning for years to come.
It's the Beatles on 90.7 WFUV. It's Dennis Elsas. Let's meet up again tomorrow afternoon right here and right now with some more rock and roll.
From the broadcast booth on air and on your radio, I'm Marty Goldberg for Study with the Best.
That's our show for today. For more information on any of our stories, take a look at our website at CUNY.TV or check out our Study with the Best Facebook page. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.